Daniel Hayes stood in the center of the Grand Council chamber and felt the weight of every eye on him. Not all eyes were friendly. The room stretched out like a cathedral, with tall columns of blue light reaching toward a ceiling so high it seemed to disappear into darkness. Around him, representatives from over 40 alien species occupied seats arranged in a perfect circle. Each species looked completely different from the others. Some had skin that shimmered like water. Others had bodies made of pure crystalline structure. A few floated in suspended fields of energy. Only Daniel stood on the ground like a normal being. He was the smallest person in the room. That was on purpose. Earth had sent him because he knew how to be calm when everyone around him wanted to fight. He was a diplomat now, but he had been a soldier once. That experience taught him that the best way to win was sometimes to not fight at all. Commander Ra sat in the highest seat of the council. She was tall and thin, with skin the color of polished silver. Her eyes were black without any white showing, and they never seemed to blink. She had been on the council for 320 years. That made her the second oldest being in the chamber. She had seen countless species come and go. She had watched civilizations rise and fall. And right now, she was looking at Daniel like he was an insect that had crawled onto her floor. The negotiations had been going badly for 3 hours. Daniel had presented Earth's request for a full trade agreement with the Council. It was a simple proposal. Earth wanted to buy advanced technology. Earth wanted to establish diplomatic relations. Earth wanted to be treated as an equal partner in the galactic community. Ra had laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made clear she found the entire idea ridiculous. "The human species," she said, and her voice carried across the chamber with perfect clarity, "has been in space for barely 200 of your years. You have no advanced weapons. You have no space stations of real importance. You are still killing each other over resources on your own world, and you come before this council asking to be treated as equals." She leaned forward in her seat. "This is not arrogance. This is not ignorance on my part. This is simply fact. You are children playing with toys you do not understand. Granting your species equal standing would be a mistake that could cost the Council far more than any trade agreement could ever gain." Daniel listened to every word. He did not interrupt. He did not show anger. He did not show fear. His face remained calm and neutral like a still lake. This was not his first time facing rejection. It would not be his last. When Ra finished speaking, other council members began to murmur. Some seemed to agree with her. Others looked uncertain. Daniel could see the weakness in her argument, but he also saw that pointing it out would only make her more stubborn. People who were wrong but proud did not accept correction well. He knew this from experience. He raised his hand slightly and spoke in a clear, quiet voice. "Commander Ra, I wonder if you would be willing to meet with me privately to discuss your concerns. Perhaps I have not explained our position well enough." The chamber fell silent. It was bold to challenge her, but not too bold. He was showing respect by asking for a private meeting, but he was also refusing to accept that the discussion was over. Several council members exchanged looks. Ra's expression darkened. "You wish to convince me in private when you could not do so in front of the council?" she asked. "Very well, come to my office. But know this, human. If you waste my time, there will be consequences, not just for your trade agreement but for your entire species. The council does not forget insults." Daniel bowed slightly. "I appreciate the opportunity, Commander, and I understand your warning." What he did not say was what he thought. What he did not say was that Ra had just made a threat against all of humanity. What he did not say was that in that moment, something shifted inside him. The diplomat in him remained calm and professional, but underneath that, the old soldier woke up. The soldier recognized a threat when he heard one. Later, in Ra's private office, the air felt different. The walls were not transparent like the council chamber walls. There were no other people watching, just Daniel and the ancient alien commander sitting across from each other at a simple table. You are going to try to convince me that humanity deserves to be treated as equals, Ra said before Daniel could even open his mouth. This will be difficult, as the answer is clearly no. Daniel leaned forward slightly. Commander, you are right that we are young in space. You are right that our technology is not as advanced as yours, but you are measuring strength in the wrong way. Ra's black eyes narrowed. Go on. Every species that reaches space came from a world, Daniel continued. Most of them came from worlds that were safe, worlds with abundance, worlds where survival was easy. Earth is not like that. We had ice ages that killed 90% of our population. We had dinosaurs that made us prey. We had diseases that wiped out entire continents. We had to fight for every single thing we have. He paused and let that sink in. We did not develop our civilization because we were smart or lucky. We developed it because we had to, because we refused to die, because we chose to work together even when it was easier to fight. That is what makes humanity valuable. We know how to survive. We know how to adapt. We know how to keep fighting even when everything seems impossible. Ra said nothing for a long moment. Then she stood up and walked to a window that looked out at the stars. You speak with certainty for a creature that has accomplished so little. I speak from experience, Daniel said. I was a soldier before I was a diplomat. I have seen humans do impossible things. I have seen them choose sacrifice over survival. I have seen a woman throw herself in front of danger to save people she had never met. He did not mention that the woman was his sister. That was a weakness he would not share with an enemy. You are asking the council to take a risk, Ra said, still looking at the stars. To treat your primitive species as something more than it is. And your argument is that you are very good at surviving. My argument, Daniel said, is that you should not underestimate what humans can do. Ra turned to face him. Then let me be very clear about what will happen if you push this issue. If you continue to demand equality when you have earned nothing, Earth will face serious consequences. We do not need your trade. We do not need your alliance. And we certainly do not need your arrogance. Daniel stood up. He looked directly into those black eyes. I hope it does not come to that, Commander. I truly do. His voice was quiet, but underneath it was something else. Something that made Ra feel, for just a moment, like she was looking at something much older and much more dangerous than a young diplomat from a primitive world. Ra could not stop thinking about Daniel Hayes. This bothered her. She was 320 years old. Her mind did not get stuck on problems like a younger being's mind did. But the human's quiet words had planted something in her thoughts that would not go away. She decided to do something she rarely did. She decided to investigate. The council kept detailed records of every species that entered their space. Earth's delegation had provided extensive historical documents. Most species did not bother to read such files. Ra read everything. She settled into her private study and began accessing the Earth records. What she found disturbed her. The history of human civilization was a history of war, not the clean wars of science and technology that Ra knew, not the strategic conflicts between advanced species that followed careful rules. No. Human wars were brutal and messy and full of suffering. Millions of humans died in single conflicts. They poisoned the soil of their own world with weapons designed to kill. They built walls and trenches and turned their planet into a battlefield. Ra read about something called the Great Wars. She read about genocides where one group of humans tried to destroy another group completely. She read about famines that killed billions. She read about diseases that swept across entire continents and left whole civilizations dead. By any reasonable measure, the human species should have destroyed itself long before reaching space. But it had not. Ra kept reading, and something strange began to happen. The same documents that told of human cruelty also told of human courage. She read about humans who gave their own food to strangers when there was not enough. She read about humans who ran into burning buildings to save people they did not know. She read about wars where enemies became friends. She read about humans who chose mercy over revenge, even when revenge would have been easy. There was an account of an ancient human who had refused to kill his enemy, even though that enemy had enslaved his people. Instead, he had chosen forgiveness. It seemed insane to Ra. Why would anyone choose mercy over victory? But humans had chosen it. Across their entire history, humans kept choosing it. Ra discovered something called the Sister Project. It involved a human named Sarah who was not actually related to anyone named Sarah. The title was symbolic. The project was designed to help humans who had suffered terrible things. Sarah had spent her entire life helping people she did not know. She had received no payment. She had received no honor. She had simply helped because helping was the right thing to do. Ra read that Sarah had died at the age of 84. Thousands of humans came to her funeral. They brought flowers and cried and told stories about how she had changed their lives. She had lived in a world of war and suffering, and she had chosen to reduce that suffering. They did not have funerals like this. When it died, their data was archived and their body was returned to atoms. There was no emotional display. There was no gathering to remember them. Ra began to understand that she was reading about a very different kind of species. Then she pulled up the personal files on Daniel Hayes. This was where her uneasiness became something stronger. Daniel was born into a family of soldiers. His father had been a military commander. His mother had been a combat pilot, but Daniel's file showed something different from the simple soldier she had imagined. When Daniel was young, he had wanted to be a scientist. He had been good at it. He had published papers on energy generation, but everything changed when Daniel was 28 years old. His sister, whose name was Rachel, had gone on an expedition to study a dangerous region of Earth. The expedition had encountered a predator that hunted humans. Rachel was not a soldier. She was a scientist like Daniel had wanted to be. But when the predator attacked, Rachel threw herself at the creature to give the others time to escape. She died in the attack. Everyone else on the expedition survived because of what she did. After that, Daniel left his scientific research. He joined the military. He became one of Earth's best combat commanders. He served for 20 years. Then he left the military and became a diplomat instead. Ra read the official reason. Daniel said he wanted to prevent wars rather than fight them. He wanted to find ways for species to work together instead of fight each other. He wanted his sister's death to mean something. He had made it his life's work to protect others, the way his sister had protected her team. Ra understood then why Daniel had said those things in their private meeting. The human was not trying to impress her with arrogance. He was serious. If she tried to harm Earth, this human would fight back, not with fear or desperation, but with the same quiet certainty that his sister had shown when she threw herself at a predator. She read more. She read about the wars humans had fought. She read about their systems of government. She read about their art and music and stories. She read about their religion and their philosophy and their dreams. And slowly, Ra realized something that made her feel uncomfortable. They had evolved on a world that was perfect. No predators, no natural disasters, no scarcity of resources. They had developed their civilization through the slow accumulation of knowledge and the careful building of technology. They had never had to fight for survival. They had never had to choose between their own life and someone else's life. Humans had made that choice. Over and over again, humans had chosen to die so that others could live. They had built their entire civilization on the principle that the group was more important than the individual. They had built their civilization on the principle that efficiency was everything. Ra closed the files and sat in darkness for a long time. She had threatened the human, thinking he was a child playing with toys. But she had not understood what she was threatening. She had not understood that humans were beings who had been forged in fire, shaped by suffering, made strong by the constant need to protect each other. She had threatened someone who had already made the decision to die, if necessary, to protect his world. And now, sitting alone in her office, Ra wondered what she had done. She wondered if her threat had made the human choose the soldier's path instead of the diplomat's path. She wondered if she had just pushed humanity toward a conflict that could only end badly for both species. She pulled up the personal file again and looked at the image of Daniel Hayes. His face was calm. His eyes showed intelligence and strength. But there was something else there too. Something that had been learned from his sister's death. Something that had been built from a lifetime of protecting others. Ra realized with certainty that if she pushed Daniel Hayes, if she threatened his world, the human would not beg. He would not surrender. He would not accept that his species was inferior. He would fight. And somehow, that thought made Ra afraid in a way she had not been afraid in over 300 years. The alarm that woke Ra at 3 in the morning was not a gentle sound. It was sharp and loud and urgent. She opened her eyes and was already moving before her consciousness fully caught up with her body. 320 years of surviving political conflicts had taught her to recognize the sound of real danger. She was in the council chamber within minutes. The scene was controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed star maps with red symbols indicating enemy positions. The collective had moved faster than anyone predicted. They were not simply expanding their territory. They were launching a full military assault. They were not technically a species. They were a hive, a collective consciousness controlling billions of individual bodies. They did not think like individuals. They did not feel like individuals. They consumed everything in their path and turned resources into more. Every species they conquered became fuel for their expansion. And they were moving toward space. How long until they reached the outer defense stations? Ra asked. 3 days, answered Commander Kex, who controlled all military operations for the Council. His skin was crystalline, and his voice sounded like pieces of glass grinding together. Maybe 4 if the resistance at the outer perimeter holds longer than expected, but our defensive positions are vulnerable. They have adapted to our weapon systems. Adapted? Asked another council member, a being of pure energy contained in a magnetic field. This should not be possible. Our weapons change their frequency constantly. The somehow learned our adaptation patterns, Kex said. For every change we make, they have a countermeasure ready. It is as if they can predict our tactical choices before we make them. Ra closed her eyes. This was the kind of problem that had no solution. They had always relied on their superior intellect and superior technology, but they did not work like other species. They were not trying to be clever. They were trying to consume everything. And if they had found a way to counter technology, the Council would have to completely reimagine their defensive strategy. Then she remembered Daniel Hayes. It was a strange thought to have in the middle of a military crisis, but his words came back to her. We know how to adapt. We know how to keep fighting even when everything seems impossible. She had access to his military record. She pulled it up on her personal screen. What she saw was remarkable. Daniel Hayes had won 17 combat operations, many of them against enemies that appeared to have superior numbers or superior firepower. But he had never won through technology. He had won through unpredictability. He had won by doing things that made no logical sense until they worked. In one battle, Daniel's force had been surrounded by an enemy with 3 times more numbers. Instead of retreating or surrendering, Daniel had ordered his troops to attack directly into the strongest point of the enemy defense. It made no logical sense. A computer would never predict it, but the surprise of the move had broken the enemy's formation, and Daniel's forces had escaped. In another conflict, Daniel had faced an enemy with superior weapons. He had ordered his troops to sabotage their own equipment and then hide the weapons in plain sight, disguised as scrap metal. The enemy had walked past them dozens of times without seeing them. When the moment was right, Daniel had activated the hidden weapons and won the battle. Ra made a decision that surprised even herself. "Summon the human diplomat," she said. "I need to speak with him immediately." It took 2 hours for Daniel to reach the council chamber. The human looked tired. He had probably been asleep when they came to get him. But the moment he saw the star maps and the red symbols showing the position, his eyes sharpened. He shifted from a tired human to a soldier in the space of a heartbeat. He asked, looking at Ra. "You know of them," she said. "We have heard stories," Daniel replied. "We know they are dangerous." Ra gestured to the tactical displays. "They are more dangerous than your stories suggest. They are adapting to our weapons faster than we can develop new ones. They are moving toward our most important station at a rate that gives us only 3 to 4 days to prepare a defense." Daniel studied the maps for several minutes. He walked closer to the holographic displays, examining them from different angles. The council members watched him in silence. What could a human possibly offer that their greatest military minds could not? Finally, Daniel spoke. "You are thinking about this wrong." Kex made a sound like shattering glass. "Explain yourself, human." "You are trying to out-technology Daniel said. "But they are a collective consciousness. They process information faster than any individual species. They learn from every encounter. The more you change your tactics based on logic and mathematics, the faster they will adapt to those changes." "Then what do you suggest?" Ra asked. "Use something they cannot predict," Daniel said. "Use intuition. Use unconventional thinking. Use the kind of decisions that make no sense until they work." He turned to face the council. "I was a soldier for 20 years. I learned that the best way to defeat a logical enemy is to do something illogical, something that cannot be predicted because it is not based on mathematics or strategy, something based on human instinct and human creativity." One of the council members laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "You are suggesting that we base our defense on what you call intuition. This is absurd." "No," Daniel said. "I am suggesting that you combine technology with human adaptability. Give us a small team, 20 humans. Let us work alongside your forces. Let us show you what we can do." Ra felt the weight of every council member's attention on her. They were waiting to see what she would say. She had been the one who questioned whether humans were worthy of equal standing. She had been the one who made the threat. "How many deaths are you willing to risk?" she asked Daniel directly. Daniel met her eyes. "All of them, if it saves your station." "And if your plan fails?" "Then you are going to lose anyway," Daniel said. "At least this way you have a chance." Ra stood. "I propose that we accept the human offer. We have nothing to lose that we have not already lost. All in favor." The vote was close, but it passed. For the first time in her life, Ra was betting everything on something that made no logical sense whatsoever. She was betting on a species that had evolved in violence and learned to survive through sacrifice. She was betting on Daniel Hayes. As the council dispersed to prepare the station's defense, Daniel approached Ra. "Thank you for believing in us," he said. Ra looked at the human. "I am not certain I believe in you, Captain, but I believe that you believe in what you can do. Perhaps that is enough." Daniel smiled slightly. "It is always enough. That is the only thing I learned in 20 years of war." Ra watched him leave the chamber, and she realized that she had just made the most important decision of her 320-year life. She had chosen to trust a species that had no reason to earn her trust. A species that was young and small and weak by every conventional measure. But a species that had somehow learned to be strong in ways she had never understood. 3 days later, Daniel and his team would arrive at the outer defense station, and everything would change. They did not attack like other species. They did not send small probing forces first. They sent waves of assault troops, thousands upon thousands of individual units controlled by a single collective mind. The first wave hit the outer defense station like a storm. Daniel stood in the command center with Ra watching the displays. The ships appeared on the sensors, countless, unstoppable. The defensive systems began firing, each shot aimed with perfect precision. Hundreds of units died in the first minutes of combat. But they kept coming. The 200 warriors at the station were positioned along the main defensive corridor. They wore armor that could deflect most weapons. They carried weapons that could burn through the armor of most species. But they did not fight like most species. They were not trying to win a fair fight. They were trying to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Daniel's 20 humans stood alongside the forces. They were smaller and less protected. Their weapons were less advanced. By every logical measure, they should have died first. But something strange happened. As the forces breached the outer wall of the station, the humans did not retreat. They did not wait for orders from a central command. Instead, each human squad adapted instantly to what they saw. When they tried to move down the main corridor, the humans did not fight them head-on. Instead, they collapsed a section of the corridor behind them, trapping the units. When tried to find another route, the humans had already anticipated it and prepared an ambush. The soldiers fought with discipline and strength, but the humans fought with something else. They fought with flexibility. They fought with creativity. They fought like beings who had been trained in chaos their entire lives. One human, a woman named Lisa, noticed that they were using an energy frequency that the systems could not counteract. She did something that no logical being would do. She took a damaged energy cell and overloaded it deliberately. The resulting explosion did not destroy anything important, but it did create a feedback in this communication system. For 3 seconds, the collective could not think with perfect clarity. In those 3 seconds, the forces killed thousands of units. 3 seconds of confusion. That was all humanity offered, but it was enough. Another human, a man named, was monitoring the station's water system. He noticed that they were using the water lines to move toward the civilian sections. Instead of trying to stop them with weapons, opened the main water release. Thousands of tons of pressurized water flooded the corridors. They did not have defenses against water pressure. They had no reason to develop them. It was a stupid tactic, and it killed more than any weapon had so far. Stupid tactic, unconventional thinking, human instinct. Ra watched everything from the command center and began to understand what Daniel meant. The humans were not winning through superiority. They were winning through unpredictability. The collective could process information incredibly fast, but it could not understand tactics that made no logical sense. A human named Robert noticed that they had established a central node for their communication system. It was a foolish mistake. They should have distributed their control, but they were overconfident. Robert took a group of 4 humans and moved through passages no warrior would have tried. The passages were small and dangerous and led through sections of the station that were not designed to be battlefields. They did not predict this because no logical being would try it. Robert's team reached the communication node and destroyed it. The collective suddenly lost the ability to coordinate their forces perfectly. They were still dangerous, but they were no longer invincible. Then the worst moment came. A massive section of the station began to collapse. The structural integrity had been damaged during the fighting. Debris fell toward the civilian evacuation area where dozens of families were sheltering. There were children in that area, hundreds of children. Daniel saw it happen on the displays. He saw the warning signs. He knew that if something did not happen in the next 90 seconds, all those children would die. He gave his weapons to another soldier and started running. Ra tried to stop him. "Captain, where are you going?" "To buy time," Daniel said as he ran past her. He moved through the corridors faster than seemed possible for a human body. His team scrambled to keep up with him. They reached the collapsing section just as the first pieces of debris began to fall. Daniel positioned himself beneath the falling structure. His team did the same. They could not stop the collapse. That was impossible, but they could direct it. They could use their bodies as barriers to guide the debris away from the civilians. They could buy time for the evacuation. The first piece of debris hit Daniel's shoulder with the force of a falling building. Bones cracked, blood spilled, but he did not move. Behind him, his team did the same. They were human. They were fragile. They were being crushed by physics and gravity and the weight of a dying space station. But they held the line. 117 civilians evacuated through the corridor. 87 of them were children. Every single one made it past the falling debris because Daniel and his team had chosen to stand there and die instead. Daniel collapsed after the last child passed him. The corridor behind him gave way. The station's emergency systems sealed the area. The collapsing section was contained. Ra watched this happen on the displays and felt something shift inside her own mind. She had spent 300 years studying strategy and logic and the careful calculation of advantage. But she had never seen anything like this. She had never seen soldiers choose death to save beings they had never met. The forces, confused and coordinated and beginning to panic, were finally pushed back. The defenders, fighting alongside the humans, drove them out of the station. By dawn, they had retreated. The station was secured. But 20 human soldiers had died or were dying. One of those humans was Daniel Hayes. Ra did not return to the council chamber. Instead, she went to the medical center. Daniel was there, unconscious, his human body broken and damaged. The doctors were working to save him, but they were uncertain. Human physiology was not something they had studied deeply. Ra stood beside his medical pod and looked at the human who had started this all by saying she was wrong. She had threatened his world. She had assumed his species was weak. She had been wrong about so many things. She placed her hand against the transparent cover of his medical pod. "Do not die," she said quietly. "I have much to apologize for." In the silence of the medical center, Ra waited to see if the human would live or die. She waited to see if her threat had been answered by a sacrifice so complete that it would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. Daniel opened his eyes to find Ra sitting beside his medical bed. He did not feel pain. That meant they had him on the strongest medication available. He could feel the bandages that covered his entire body. He could feel that he was still broken and healing. He tried to speak, and his voice came out like gravel. "How long?" he asked. 72 hours, Ra said. "Your physiology is strange. The human body heals at a rate that our systems did not anticipate. You should have died, but you are dying much more slowly than expected." Daniel moved his head slightly to look at her. "Is that good or bad?" "It is good," Ra said. "It means you will live. It means your team's sacrifice was not for nothing." Daniel closed his eyes again. His team. 19 of them had not made it. 19 soldiers from Earth were never going home. They had died saving civilians. They had died defending a species that had rejected them just days before. "They knew," Daniel said quietly. "They knew it might end like this. They chose to come anyway." Ra did not respond for a long moment. Then she said something that she had never said to any being in her 320-year life. "I was wrong." Daniel opened his eyes again. "I was wrong about your species," Ra continued. "I measured your worth by your technology and your age and your position in the galactic community. I did not understand what I was actually looking at. I did not understand that human worth comes from something else entirely." She stood and began to pace. "Your species evolved on a world that wanted to kill you. Every day, your ancestors faced enemies that wanted them dead. But instead of becoming cruel, instead of becoming selfish, humanity became something else. You learned to protect each other. You learned to sacrifice for each other. You learned that strength without mercy is not real strength." Daniel tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his body, breaking through the medication. "Do not move," Ra said, and she placed a hand on his chest to keep him still. "Rest. We have much time to discuss the future." "What future?" Daniel asked. "You threatened my world, you rejected us. Now you apologize when we bleed for you." His words were harsh because he was in pain and he was tired and he had just watched his soldiers die. But they were also true. Ra did not defend herself. She accepted the truth of what he said. "The council met while you were unconscious. They have decided to grant Earth full trading status. They have decided to offer formal alliance with the... And they have decided that we were fools to reject your species." Daniel laughed and then gasped as pain shot through his sides. "You were fools." "Yes," Ra agreed, "we were fools." She sat back down beside his bed. "There is something I want you to understand, Daniel. I read your file. I read about your sister. I read about why you became a diplomat instead of staying a soldier." Daniel said nothing. "I understand now," Ra said. "You became a diplomat because you wanted to prevent wars. You wanted to keep others from suffering the loss you suffered. But that was not why you came to the station. You came to the station because when I threatened your world, you responded the way your sister taught you to respond. You chose to protect others, even at the cost of your own life." Daniel looked at the ancient alien commander. "My sister taught me that strength means nothing if you do not use it to protect those who cannot protect themselves." "And that," Ra said, "is why your species will become something greater than mine ever was. We are intelligent. We are advanced. But we are not good. We are not brave. We are not willing to die for each other anymore." She stood again and looked out the medical center window at the stars. "I am going to tell the council something. I am going to tell them that the greatest mistake we ever made was not realizing sooner that humanity had something we lost long ago, something valuable, something we need." Over the next weeks, Daniel healed slowly. The human body was tough in ways medicine did not understand. The damage was extensive, but Daniel refused to stay in the medical center longer than necessary. He worked with the to document the human tactical approaches that had worked against the. He explained the importance of unconventional thinking. He helped them understand that sometimes the strongest strategy was one that made no logical sense. Ra came to see him often. They did not become friends exactly. The gap between their species was still too great, but they developed respect for each other, and Ra shared something with Daniel that she had not shared with anyone in centuries. She talked about her own sister, a sister who had died long ago, a sister who had tried to do something kind and had died for it, a sister who Ra had forgotten because grief was inefficient and did not waste time on useless emotions. Daniel listened to her story and said, "Your sister taught you the same lesson mine taught me, that some things matter more than survival." Ra looked at the human and nodded slowly. When Daniel was strong enough to return to Earth, Ra went with him. She stood in the shuttle that would take them back to the human world and looked out at the stars. In just a few days, she would see Earth for the first time. She would meet other humans. She would try to explain to her people why she had become an advocate for a species she had once rejected. She would tell them that strength comes in different forms, that the species in the galaxy was also the bravest, that humanity had something ancient and precious that the advanced civilizations had forgotten how to value. Daniel stood beside her in the shuttle. He was still healing. His shoulder still caused him pain when he moved wrong, but his mind was clear. His determination was solid. "What happens now?" Ra asked him. "Now," Daniel said, "we build something new. We show the galaxy that different species can work together. We build a partnership between thee and Earth. We prove that human values matter." "And if the galaxy does not accept this partnership?" Ra asked. Daniel smiled slightly. "Then we adapt, we survive, we do what humans have always done. We protect each other and we keep moving forward." The shuttle moved toward Earth. Behind them, the station that humans and had defended together was being repaired. On that station, a memorial was being built for the 19 human soldiers who had died saving children. For the first time in her life, Ra understood why such memorials mattered. For the first time, she understood that some things were more important than logic or efficiency or survival itself. Some things were worth dying for, and humanity had taught her that lesson with blood and sacrifice, and a courage that came from deep within the human heart. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Ra placed her hand next to Daniel's. For a moment, the ancient alien and the young human stood together and looked at the world that had raised him. A world of danger and beauty and endless struggle. A world that had somehow created beings capable of choosing compassion, even when they had the power to choose cruelty. And Ra finally understood why she had been afraid of this species. Because humanity was strong. Not because of weapons or technology, but because of who they chose to be.